All questions must be civilly asked and be applicable to all candidates and relevant to West Virginia. Each student has about 30 seconds to ask a question to the candidates, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond unless otherwise stated. We would like to remind everyone that this is a town hall and not a debate. The purpose of this event is for students to hear from the candidates, not for the candidates to argue or attack each other. One final reminder is this event is being recorded by WSHC, a student-run radio station at Shepherd University. Please keep this in mind while talking. Please refrain from any profane language, though we have not had a problem with that this evening. Once again, thank you all for coming to this town hall. Thanks to all of our candidates who are here in attendance. And let's go ahead and get started by having each candidate introduce themselves. Starting with Mr. Allers.
All right, how are you guys? Thank you so much for hosting this. I'm a former SGA member myself, so this is amazing that you guys are involved, really passionate. I am Mike Allers Jr. I am a father, I am a husband, I'm an educator, and a conservative columnist, and all of those are why I'm running in this race for the House of Delegates. I saw that there were things in Charleston that weren't being done effectively to benefit all West Virginians, especially the people in my panhandle, and that's why I dove in. And it was actually, I was very passionate as a student to get involved in government, because this is the only way I think that you could create real change. And that is why I dove into this race. And I'm here tonight to take your questions. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Clark.
Well, thank you. I want to thank Shepherd University for putting on this. I want to thank everybody, all of the candidates for coming out and putting themselves out in front of everyone. My name is Wayne Clark. I represent the 99th District, which is in Charlestown, West Virginia. I am finishing up my second term, which is 4 years in the House of Delegates. I am currently a member of the House Education Committee. I'm also a member of the House Workforce Committee, and I am the Vice Chairman of Economic Development and Tourism. Economic development tourism is something that's very important for the state of West Virginia, especially here in the Eastern Panhandle. One of the largest employers in the Eastern Panhandle is tourism, and I'm happy and proud to be sitting on that committee, leading it, the charge for West Virginia and for the Eastern Panhandle. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. And I want to say I am also a peer of the students here. I'm a master's student in the program for Appalachian Studies. I am delighted to be a Shepherd Ram. My former alma mater is Georgetown University, where I studied international development with a focus on energy and environmental policy. And I can say that the education that is offered here at Shepherd is every bit toe-to-toe as good as what you can get at Georgetown. So, and opportunities like this are a big part of that. Beyond that, my candidacy is grounded in what is called the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights, which is based on FDR's 1944 Second Bill of Rights. And it says very basically, there's 10 of them, but it says very basically that we have secured political rights, and it's time now to secure economic rights for all West Virginians and all Americans. You can find out more about that and myself at my website at troy4wv.com. That's TROYFORWV.com. And thank you. I'm looking forward to the questions.
All right. And finally, Mr. Funkhouser.
Good evening, Chelsea. Thanks for having us here. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and attentiveness to our upcoming elections. I'm a graduate of Shepherd University, majored in political science. I also graduated Jefferson High School when we were a one high school county, and went on after Shepherd to West Virginia University College of Law. I'm an attorney. I'm a lifelong Jefferson County resident. I've served on the Jefferson County Farmland Protection Board through my term limits, which I believe in term limits. And so I've demonstrated public service conserving Jefferson County. And I'm basically the core reasons and the themes of my campaign is being a zealous advocate for Jefferson County in Charleston as a representative, as well as bringing about more transparency, accountability, and integrity through every facet of government. I think that improves it, and I welcome your questions.
All right, before we get started with student questions, we'll go ahead and answer kind of lighthearted get-to-know-you questions in terms of what are each of the candidates' kind of favorite memories in relation to Shepherd University or Shepherdstown in general.
Okay, so I'm a graduate of James Madison University and Mary Baldwin University. However, one of the very first mailers that I ever got in the mailbox was from Shepherd University, and I would have loved to have gone here. It appealed to me. I was living in Central Virginia at the time, but my parents said, hey, if you want to go to college, you have to pay for it entirely. So I actually had to go to community college first before then getting a guaranteed transfer to James Madison University, because that was the program. If that wasn't the case and I had the money at the time and my family had the means, I would have loved to have gone to Shepherd because I really liked your flyers. So, so this is actually my first memory at Shepherd University, right? So this is a good one.
All right, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. My full-time job, I am the owner of Locust Hill Golf Course. I am also the executive director of the First Tee program for the state of West Virginia. The First Tee program is a youth golf organization. We started the program at Locust Hill in 2011. My best memory is the fact in 2021, the Shepherd men's golf team that competed at the regional finals, all 5 starters were former students of mine. To start out in 2011 with the kids that are 9, 10, 11 years old, and then to get to the point where you can stand there on a golf course and watch every single one of your kids that you had a hand in raising and teaching, that was very meaningful to me, and that will be my greatest memory ever here at Shepherd University.
All right, Mr. Miller.
Well, as a student still here, it may still yet to come, which is my favorite memory. This is certainly up there, speaking with all of you and to be speaking with such distinguished gentlemen up here. Beyond that, Shepherd, the cultural opportunities, the concerts I've been able to see, the speakers I've been able to hear, the storytellers I've been able to hear from, and the exposition to a broader Appalachian culture that I think, it's very easy to live up here and say you're in West Virginia and have a West Virginia zip code, but as one student asked earlier or pointed out earlier, it can also feel very removed from the region. And so to have that community interface and to really be able to enrich myself alongside all of these other students here has been a genuine honor.
And Mr. Funkhouser.
I have many, many memories of Shepherd University. Obviously being a student here, but growing up in Shepherdstown, one of the major towns of Jefferson County. My mother being involved in the Rumsey Radio Hour over here at Reynolds Hall and hanging out for rehearsals and concerts and things of that nature. And when I was a young child, when I was in Jefferson High School, I actually took a class here in for creative writing, as well as was on the lacrosse club. And we went and we played University of Maryland College Park's lacrosse club in a tournament down there, and we almost beat them. They were redshirt freshmen for their varsity team, and that was a fun memory. And playing soccer here at Shepherd, I played for one season, as well as some vigorous debates with Professors Slocum Schaefer and Woods and a number of others in the political science department and history department. So I can't pick one.
All right, are there any student questions that we would like to be asked?
What are some initiatives or ways
West Virginia? What are some initiatives or ways West Virginia could combat poverty in the state, especially for children and minority populations?
All right, we're actually going to start with Mr. Funkhouser for this one.
Well, that's a good question. We have one of the lowest workforce participation rates in the country. We have a lot of poverty, and there was a famous politician who was campaigning here in 1960 who said economic development is the major issue facing West Virginia at the time, and he said that in the middle of the county here at Charlestown Racetrack, that was JFK. And it continues today of how do we bring good jobs so we can provide to our people and provide opportunities to our people, not to just strip mine, absentee landlords like many people have confronted in coal country, but those are energy jobs. Our, economic development is the key to today. It continues today to provide for those people. We need to lift up people. We need to provide them opportunities. I commuted for many years when I graduated law school. There was just more opportunities in like 50% of the rest of Jefferson County. They commute today. So we need to do more so we can provide more for our people, make them more self-sufficient.
All right, Mr. Miller.
We could start by fully funding some of the programs that already exist in the state. I understand that we had a massive budget surplus recently that then didn't necessarily get reinvested into the programs where people were requesting that those funds be placed, whether that's with WIC or SNAP or any of these other programs that are both federal and state matching. We're about to lose 1 out of 3 people on Medicaid right now because we aren't matching what's going into the Medicaid fund, and that's with our budget as it exists right now with an alleged surplus. All of these programs serve to help people out of poverty. They serve to provide a baseline for people through which they can express liberty. You cannot be free if you are not sure if you can afford a medical bill for something that is causing you pain and problems in the workforce. You are not going to claim your benefits if you know that losing your job is going to result in getting tossed off of unemployment here shortly because we've shortened unemployment things. So I would start by investing in some of the programs that we already have.
All right, Mr. Clark.
Well, thank you for the question. There are 2 things I want to address. One, just because it was brought up in regards to our surplus, there was one thing that the legislature had to deal with, and that was a potential clawback of $465 million from some COVID spending. And so we were unable to appropriate a lot of our surplus. So we will be doing that in May in a special session. So I want to address that. So many of these projects are still going to get funded. But the real answer to your question is how do we enhance economic development throughout the entire state? Each area, each region, I would say the state has 4 regions, and each one of those regions has its own issue that we have to deal through economic development through the state. The Economic Development and Tourism Committee is only 2 years old, so we still have many things that we still have to continue to work on to bring jobs. And like Mr. Funkhouser has said, yes, we have a 45% workforce participation. Think about that. 55% of West Virginians do not work. So we have a lot of little things that we have to do to fix situations like we're talking about. And I hope to continue working through economic development and tourism to make those changes in a regional basis, yes.
And finally, Mr. Allers.
Sure. So everyone can keep talking about economic development, and yes, that is an important part of that, but it all starts with education. I'm an educator. Right now, your literacy rate really starts, it's studied before 2 years old, 2 years old is when everything is baked in for these literacy rates. In West Virginia, 1 out of 4 adults cannot read above a 4th grade reading level, and that is a crime. So we need more access to education and to help working parents in general. So part of my campaign, I'm advocating for free childcare in the state of West Virginia. If we have plenty of investments in all these things, such as sending people to private school, and we have a surplus for the first time in a long time, we have enough money to invest in the people of West Virginia, getting kids starting at a very young age in childcare, so that way that is covered. The moms are able to go back to work. The dads can continue to bring food on the table and get good paying jobs in West Virginia. So it all starts with education.
Are there any other student questions for today? All right.
In the January session, the West Virginia Senate introduced Senate Bill 260, which would be mandating overtime pay for teachers. What is the candidate's opinions on that?
We're actually going to start with Mr. Clark.
Sure. Senate Bill 260, overtime pay. So teachers are contracted for 200 days a year. It is actually built into their contract, and my wife is a teacher. I've been a substitute teacher for several years. I teach golf. We're all in the education field. You sign your contract. Your contract is what it is. You have a 200-day contract. You're paid all 12 months, and you're off 60 some days a year. So I would not support making a change to that. That I think that goes against our laws in regards to workforce and labor.
Okay. Next for Mr. Miller.
I firmly believe that if you work more hours, you should be paid for those hours. And so, I think that if we're mandating that teachers have a certain amount of hours per work, and they have to work longer than that to get done what they need to do to provide the education for the students or to provide the admin that we're asking of teachers, or provide for all of the essential things that go into schooling that are largely unpaid, and teachers also put a lot of their own money into. I think it's easy to stand by. If you're working more hours, you should be paid for those hours.
All right, Mr. Funkhouser.
That's a good question, and I don't have an exact answer for it. I would ask the teachers' unions. I would ask the school boards. I would ask why are you requiring teachers to work overtime hours? Okay, certain professionals, they're not required to be paid overtime. They're professionals. Others, hourly rate, they are under law. So I believe teachers should be paid fairly. I believe that they should have cost of living adjustments, just like the federal employees, where here in the Eastern Panhandle, the cost of living is 3 to 4 times greater than other parts of the state. I think that's something that, as the bill works through the legislative process, we would get answers for those questions and say, what do the teachers say? We have a very top-heavy education system, and I think we should go line by line through every item of the education budget and make the right adjustments so that more of the resources are sent to the front lines, the teachers, the school service personnel, and having a little more accountability over our school boards as well.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Allers.
Sure. So as an educator, I think a common misconception is where it's like 60 days of summer. It's not like we're on vacation. My wife works full-time, so she doesn't really get that break, which means I'm taking care of my 2-year-old son. My daughter's coming on the way, so surprise, I now have to deal with that as well. And I'm happy to do that. But so I have to balance being a family, supporting my wife as well, but also prepping. And every teacher knows that we are buying our own materials. It's really like a month of anxiety getting everything together. Then you have to meet with your team over the break. And then on top of that, you have all these meetings you have to go to that were kept at the school because a lot of people like to ask questions, and then that adds up enough time. So absolutely, overtime pay needs to happen for educators, because if we are going to be productive in the classroom, sometimes that takes staying 3 hours past time to get stuff done at school. So absolutely, teachers deserve this pay.
And then, Joanna, did you still have a question you wanted to ask?
Hi, good evening. How do you intend on helping diabetics in Jefferson County and across the state? Thank you.
All right. We're going to start with Mr. Miller this time.
We've made a lot of great progress at the federal level and at the state level on capping the price of insulin. But again, we need to be making sure that diabetics, regardless of what their income level are, can afford the insulin they need, and also the preventative care. We need to make sure that we have access to good food in these areas. We hear a lot in the food insecurity world about food deserts, but we talk less about food swamps, which is where the only options that are affordable are people who are going to fast food restaurants. And a lot of our communities in West Virginia and in this panhandle depend on those sources of food. There are programs that allow people to use like SNAP for farmers markets and things like that, and we need to step up those programs, as well as making sure that everybody has access to affordable and meaningful health care in this state.
All right, Mr. Funkhouser.
Great question. My father was a type 2 diabetic and recently passed away, and it affects a lot of people. And I'm all of the above on whatever the solution is. Again, what's the optimal solution? What can we as a county, what can we as a state do? Seek as much federal matching funds to provide health care of the symptoms of the problem, but also go after the root causes of them in terms of education at a young age, eating healthy, providing greater incentives for people, maybe a tax break for their gym membership, but things of that nature to not only treat the symptom, but we go after the root and more healthy lifestyles where, type 1 obviously is more of a genetic predisposition and type 2 as well, but what you do every day has a compounding interest over your life. And so, all of the above in terms of whatever the best solution, what's the optimal solution there, I don't know, but I would love to hear your solutions and work towards having a healthier West Virginia.
All right, Mr. Allers.
Sure. I think this is an issue that all of us at this table could work together on, regardless of party. That affects us all. I do not have any direct experience with that, but I do know that education is dead last in the country when it comes to health care. And that's something that absolutely needs to change. And, this area, my wife, we have to go to, if we want to treat ourselves, we have to go over, to Virginia just to go to Trader Joe's. So absolutely healthy food does need to be available here. But also, when it comes to medicine, even telemedicine out of state is cracked down on here. So we need to really work together, Republicans and Democrats, to help type 2 diabetics at any type to really get our healthcare system up and working for everybody.
All right, and finally, Mr. Clark.
Well, thank you for the question. Diabetes is a very big issue. It's something that is in my family. One of the things I've done for the last 3 years, I've introduced a heart health initiative through education that increases education on physical education and relates it to the obesity issue that we have within the state. Each year I have to make some little adjustments to it until I get something that's perfect, and I'm hoping next year that we have something that is perfect on that. But the other thing, in bouncing off what Mr. Miller mentioned about the SNAP, is I would like to see where the state is actually working with the SNAP on farmers market, a 2 times incentive. So if someone walks in with a SNAP card at a farmer's market and they pay $1, buy something for $1, they actually get 2 times points for that. So they actually get $3 to spend at that farmer's market. That helps them to buy local and helps them work to make healthier choices for their family.
Are there any other student questions?
Hello. While we're on the topic of health, mental health is a prevalent issue, especially among the youth. Does your platform implement accessible mental health resources?
We're going to start with Mr. Allers.
Sure. Yes, it does. It is a huge issue. As a teacher, I see this directly, impacting. I teach 6th grade, and it starts there, especially when in regards to social media and things like that, impacting our mental health, and also overworking. I think whether you are a student, whether you are a teacher, overworking, really trying to make ends meet, especially in this economy, it's tough. So absolutely, I would love more access to mental health care. Not only, out in public, but definitely in our schools, starting there first, whether it's university or, in your elementary or middle school. We need to encourage that and support our guidance counselors. But like I mentioned earlier with the diabetes issue, even telemedicine, just getting someone to talk to. If you want to seek out of state, that should be allowed. And in West Virginia, that currently is not the case. So we absolutely need to do more to support our youth. And support really, it doesn't even matter if you're old or young, actually, quite frankly. Mental health is an issue that has been ignored by all of our generation, by the older generations, and we definitely need to attack that.
All right, Mr. Clark.
Well, I want to thank you for this question. It's very deep in my heart. 2 things. This year, I was the lead sponsor of the School Psychology Interstate Cooperation Pact, which allows, West Virginia is the first state to introduce this, which allows school psychologists who are licensed in other states to work between different states without having to do any kind of reciprocity or changing of their license. And I am going to ask for an extension on this one. In 2022, many of you do know, many of you do not know, I have twin girls. In 2022, I was the lead sponsor of Megan's Law. Megan's Law is a bill that helps identify self-harm and eating disorders, something that my life was drastically impacted by. One of my twins nearly died. There's a gentleman that's sitting in the back room here, Mr. Espinoza, who actually read my speech on the floor because I could not answer it. I could not read it myself. I am absolutely excited to find out that the Southern Legislative Conference has asked this year to work with myself in making Megan's Law an actual regional law and have every single state in the Southern Legislative Conference adopt it to help other students who are suffering from eating disorders and self-harm. And I'm looking at Mr. Doyle because he's also one of the ones that sat there and voted on that bill. So thank you for that question.
All right, Mr. Miller.
One of the points on the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights is that every American and every West Virginian should have a right to comprehensive, complete, and affordable health care, and that absolutely includes mental health care. And each of these things in the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights, as much as I'd love to write a law for each one and have them all be sweeping, it's things like these types of laws that make health care more accessible to every single one who needs it. Beyond that, I see our healthcare crises in this country as not an instantaneous thing. It's not just this generation with social media or something to this effect. This is really a crisis of community, a crisis of despair, a crisis of loneliness. And it has its roots in a story that says America is all about individual liberty and all about individuality and you pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And if you fail at that, that's on you. If your parents failed on that, you are then their descendants. And it says that all of these things are entirely incumbent on you. And I'd like to just take a few more seconds because Mr. Clark did. To that effect, we need to start by saying we are here for each other. Our government is here for us. It's our government. It's our popular government. And if we stand up and make it work for us, it will work for us. But it also starts with us standing together and getting organized and rejecting the idea that society is just a collection of individuals, because we are all here for each other, and all of our well-being depends on each other's well-being. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Funkhouser.
Well, West Virginia does have a few programs under the Department of Human Services with the Bureau of Behavioral Health, and they recently reformed that because it was such a top-heavy bureaucracy. They split it into 3 components, and certainly work towards improving that situation, the IDD waiver situation. It depends, there's how narrow or broad you're talking about mental health. There's a lot of substance abuse issues. There's a lot of bipolar, misdiagnosis, things like that. So we've got to. Again, what's the optimal solution here? Is it more resources? Is it cutting red tape so people can be treated more fairly? If there's not providers, we're a very rural state, so telehealth is important. Again, I would just ask for how do we? You have to define the problem in specificity before you can go after the root of it and work to improve it.
All right, I think we have time for one more student question before closing remarks.
How do you feel about DEI training on college campuses?
All right, we're going to start with Mr. Funkhouser.
It would depend on how you define DEI. So, there's some people just say it's a euphemism for, racial supremacy or racial entitlement. I would defer to Chris Rufo on these things. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but I don't think we should be fostering ethnic grievances or ancestral grievances. I think we need to be treating people more as individuals and focusing on people's behaviors and their merits and not some racial entitlement.
Mr. Allers?
Sure. Far too often, I think this issue kind of gets really attacked by the fringes, really on either bolstered by one fringe or attacked by the other. And I think that it is our commitment, actually, to make sure that true diversity is being committed to in school. Again, my son, he is biracial. My wife is African American. He's going to have a very unique experience that's different than mine. But I want to make sure that not only is West Virginia inclusive on these issues, but also if we are going to have DEI initiatives, that we have to make sure that it is truly giving everybody a seat at the table. Far too often when it comes to DEI and things such as even affirmative action, what they were finding was that for some reason white women were somehow the beneficiaries of DEI and the beneficiaries of affirmative action. I don't think that was the original intent of that as well. So if we are going to be committed to that, then it shouldn't really be, it should be a bipartisan issue to make sure that representation of all races is available at our universities.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, thank you for the question in regards to, so when we're talking about training, we're talking about DEI training, all right? I was born and raised in Baltimore. I've lived here in West Virginia for 20 years. But when you're born and raised in the city of Baltimore, there are so many different ethnic experiences that you can have in one day. You can walk 6 blocks and have 6 different ethnic experiences. I was taught that everybody should be loved for who they are and what they do, not just because of what they look like or what color their skin is or whether they're a male or a female. And when we're talking about DEI training, are we talking about training people to look at the differences, or are we looking at teaching people, hey, recognize them, that love them for who they are, not what their differences are in their look or appearance? Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Miller?
I think there's a lot of talk about what DEI training is on college campuses, and I'm not sure a lot of people have ever actually engaged in one or beyond just the headline attacks on it. And it's a very convenient thing to attack. The last thing was critical race theory, CRT. That was the last 3-letter acronym that we were focusing on. And all of it is to say that somehow any attempt at anti-discrimination is actually discrimination. And this is just so absurd to me. And it recalls the logic that somehow we've now weakened our Voting Rights Act at the federal level because it was so effective in preventing discrimination in voting rights that the Supreme Court said it's no longer necessary, essentially saying that an umbrella that is keeping you from getting wet is you might as well throw it away because you're not getting wet because you have the umbrella. And I think that DEI trainings, it seems to me that there is an essential need for these, and that if we're going to get in the business of telling any universities how their boards or how their administration should be running these universities, I would start by finding out what the administrators' pay is relative to other professors and going after that. These are the things I think that we need to be focusing on when we're looking at inequalities in schools or businesses or anywhere else, is where are the expressed inequalities that are happening economically before we get there. And beyond that, if a public school or a private school wants to do DEI trainings, I say let them do it.
And my timing was off. I think we have time for one more short question, if there's anyone who would like to. All right, thank you.
Hello. How do you plan on combating the barriers to access reproductive care for West Virginia residents?
Kind of forget who went first last time. Was it Mr. Clark?
I have not gone first yet,
All right, go ahead. My
but thank you so much. Okay. So, obviously, in 2022, we passed the second most restrictive abortion law in the country. And what we now have to do is we now have to take care of those kids. We have to find a way to take care of those kids. One of the next things we did in 2023 is we separated DHHR into 3 different individual buckets. And now we're able to dig in and find out how exactly we can go through over the next couple years. And last year we ended up funding each of the different buckets, and we gave them each their roles and all the other stuff. So it's a whole little process. But I can tell you one of the things that I'm very proud of in my life is all the support that I've given Birthright in regards to whether it's financial, whether it's volunteering my time, whether it's being there, doing diaper drives and all the other stuff. And I think if more people were being active in regards to helping the young mothers in raising parents, families, grandparents, I think we can get through this together. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Miller.
I think we should get rid of the 0-day abortion ban that we have right now, and we should put it to a referendum, probably to something like what we had under Roe from 1973 until last year. Anything beyond that, I think, should be, absolutely, we should be helping to discourage people from getting abortions for any reason. But the reality is, people are going to get abortions, whether we have a 0-day ban or not. The question is, what the safety of that is going to be. Whether it's going to be only people who can afford to travel out of state for some sort of abortion tourism that our state has, I guess, created now, or and what we are going to do to make sure that there's good reproductive health education, good things like condoms and other things that help prevent unwanted pregnancies without dictating to anyone to say that what you do with your body is more a concern of the state than anything else.
Mr. Funkhouser.
Well, it's a sensitive question, and it's a fair question. It depends on what you mean by reproductive health care. Some people use it as a euphemism for unlimited on-demand abortion up until the 9th month. I'm pro-life. I'm honored to be endorsed by West Virginians for Life. I think the Roe was wrongly decided. It was judicial sophistry, and it's still there's 2 victims when it comes to abortion. It's both the unborn and the mother. And we need to do more to promote family values, to promote defending life. And the law that was passed, I think that was a good first step. The question is when does an unborn child have the constitutional right to life? And I think the legislature did a good job with fairly balancing that. Obviously, you protect the life of the mother. That's the paramount life. There's always exceptions for that, and there's also some other exceptions in those rare circumstances that seems to fairly balance the issues. But we certainly should focus on our foster care situation and providing more of a family values and encouraging good stewardship of raising the next generation. They're the most important. They're the future.
All right, Mr. Allers.
All right. So I am pro-life. I do not see, obviously, the reality we have here in West Virginia. This is the bill. This is the law here. However, I think what is the next step? And I think a lot of the time, the pro-life argument needs to be about not just, okay, we got to prevent abortion and that's it. It needs to be, what are we going to do when that child is born? Or whether or not, a young mother is deciding whether or not they should have that child. To me, you cannot be pro-life if there's no child care options. You cannot be pro-life if we do not have family leave. To me, I want to encourage in West Virginia, I want to establish a culture of life, and that means being there for young mothers, being there for young families, encouraging responsibility, but also having the resources available to help deal and to help support these kids. Because I think a lot of the time, and I've been saying this for a while because I am pro-life, a lot of the time, if those options were available or in place, people might think twice about abortion in general, because it used to be safe, legal, and rare, right? And now I think, on one side, it's up until the 9th month, and then on the other side, it's, no exceptions. And both are wrong. And we all have to come together now in this new reality in West Virginia. And if we are going to support these babies and these mothers, and encourage fathers to step up as well, then childcare and education and more programs need to be put in place.
All right, so now is our time for closing statements. Since I apologize, I was a bit off in my evening of the starting, I'll have Mr. Clark start with closing statements.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Shepherd University for putting this on. I want to thank the students that showed up. It's hard. I can tell you, showing up and asking questions of people that you don't know that are standing here, it's tough. And I thank you all for coming here this evening and asking us questions. I want to learn more about, the legislative system. So I applaud you all. If you want to learn more about myself, as you know, there's a little theme that you've heard all night long. You can find more information about me at clark4wv.com. So everybody has something WV, but I'm looking forward to winning my election on May 14th is the primary, and representing the 99th District again for 2 more years in Charleston. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
My website is troy4wv.com. I use the word 4, not the number 4. And what I will say is that you can find lots more about me and my campaign there, specifically that 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights. And I will just take a moment to say, once again, these are 10 large-scale goals that people can look at and say, well, 1, they're too abstract, and 2, they're too large. And what I'll say is, yes, but every piece of legislation that goes through our legislature can be held up against these 10 things, and we can ask ourselves, is this helping to secure one of these rights, or is this working to deprive one of these rights or make it harder to access one of these rights for any member of our West Virginian community, including in District 98? So I hope that you'll come out and go to that website, sign up to volunteer, subscribe for updates. If you can, please donate, and join us in this struggle as we get organized and make our government work for us. Because my entire lifetime, we've been told that our government is the enemy, and I'm here to say that does not have to be the case, and that is not what our founders intended.
Mr. Funkhouser?
Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for everyone for being here. My website is joeforjefferson.com. I'm a lifelong Jefferson County resident. My priorities are the pocketbook issues that make the West Virginia state government work, that puts more money in your pocket, that makes government more transparent, more accountable, and provides more integrity, and provides, generalized support, local powers and local solutions. But you still have to have uniformity throughout the state so you don't have a patchwork of laws and rules that are difficult to navigate. So the question is what the fair balance is there on those particular issues. Please contact me. I've pledged to zealously represent Jefferson County down in Charleston. Too often we've gotten the short end of the stick. We are a very unique region. We have unique needs that the rest of the state doesn't. And my priorities are going to be keeping more of our tax dollars here in West Virginia, lowering taxes, being part of positive solutions, promoting family values, protecting all of our constitutional rights, and increasing funding for our traditional and charter public schools, and growing the Hope Scholarship. I look forward to a spirited campaign.
All right, and finally, Mr. Allers.
Well, I think this is my favorite Shepherd University. This is my favorite moment right here. My website is Allers. I guess this isn't really original. It's allersforwv.com. FOR. I am looking forward to winning the May 14th primary because I believe West Virginia needs to go on a different track. I believe that for far too long. We can no longer accept being dead last in everything. Being dead last in healthcare and education is not something to be proud of. I believe that we got to get better paying jobs. The college students that are here, I want you to stay here. I really do. I want good paying jobs for you guys to stay here instead of going to Maryland and Northern Virginia. I lived in Northern Virginia. It's not fantastic, okay? I want you guys right here. We got to make sure that we are doing more to get our economy going here, to protect our schools, to make sure that our kids are getting better education and that our moms are taken care of. So that is why I'm in this race, and I encourage you to check out my website. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much to all of our candidates, both who are up there right now, as well as everyone who has come today. If we wanted to give a round of applause for everyone who both came out and asked questions tonight. I'm not sure if Paul had any finishing remarks, but please take some